The old warship drifted through the dark space between the stars, its hull bearing the scars of a decade of service. Paint peeled from its sides, and some of the exterior lights flickered weakly against the void. In large letters along its hull, the name Defiant stood proud, though the elements had worn away at its once bright paint. Captain James Miller stood at the bridge's main viewport, his weathered hands clasped behind his back as he watched the stars drift by. 20 years of space service had left gray streaks in his dark hair, but his eyes remained sharp as ever. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, the soft beeping of instruments providing a comfortable background rhythm to their patrol route. "Captain," called out Tom from the sensor station, his voice cutting through the quiet. "We have company. Imperial patrol vessel approaching from Sector 7. Miller nodded, unsurprised. The Empire's ships had developed a habit of shadowing the Defiant whenever they crossed paths. Standard approach. "Yes, sir. They're making no effort to hide their presence." "Of course they aren't," Miller muttered. He squared his shoulders and prepared for what would come next. The Empire's crews had become predictable in their arrogance. The massive Imperial vessel emerged from the darkness like a predator, its silver hull gleaming with the light of distant stars. The ship was everything the Defiant wasn't: sleek, modern, and pristine. Its design spoke of power and wealth, a testament to the Empire's technological superiority. The communications officer, Ann Wilson, touched her console. "They're hailing us, sir. Standard frequencies." "Put them through." Miller kept his voice level, professional. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the sneering face of an Imperial captain. His uniform sparkled with decorative metals, and his purple skin seemed to shimmer under the bright lights of his bridge. "Well, well," the Imperial captain's voice dripped with mock surprise. "If it isn't the human's famous rust bucket. Still holding together, I see. Rather impressive for such primitive engineering." Miller smiled politely. He'd heard variations of this speech dozens of times before. "Imperial vessel, this is Captain James Miller of the Earth ship Defiant. We're conducting a routine patrol of human space. Is there something we can help you with?" The Imperial captain's sneer grew wider. "Help? From that ancient heap of scrap metal? Tell me, Captain, does it ever bother you? Flying around in yesterday's technology, while the rest of the galaxy advances, your ship belongs in a museum, or perhaps a scrapyard." Behind Miller, the bridge crew continued their work, seemingly unaffected by the insults. They'd all heard worse. The Empire's disdain for human technology had become something of a running joke among the crew. "We manage well enough," Miller replied calmly. "Now, if there's nothing else—" "Oh, there is something else," the Imperial captain interrupted. "We've detected some irregularities in your power signature. Nothing serious, I'm sure. Just the sort of thing one would expect from such outdated equipment. Would you like us to send over some of our engineers? They might be able to prevent your core from failing catastrophically." Miller felt his jaw tighten, but kept his expression neutral. The irregularities were nothing of the sort. They were carefully crafted power fluctuations designed to make the Defiant appear less capable than it was. The fact that Imperial sensors could detect them at all was actually a point in humanity's favor, though they didn't know it. "Thank you for your concern," Miller said, "but our engineers have everything well in hand." The Imperial captain made a dismissive gesture. "Suit yourself. Though I must admit, I'm curious. How do you humans maintain your pride? Flying ships like this, while the rest of us cruise among the stars in vessels of true power. It must be humbling." Miller allowed himself a small smile. "Pride comes in many forms, Captain. We take ours in getting the job done, regardless of how we look doing it." "How charmingly primitive," the Imperial captain laughed. "Well, we won't keep you from your important patrol. Try not to let any of your systems fail catastrophically. It would be such a shame to have to rescue your crew." The transmission cut off before Miller could respond, though he hadn't planned to. The Imperial ship glided past them, its engines flaring with unnecessary brightness, a deliberate display of their supposed superiority. "Well," Anne said from her station, "they're getting more creative with their insults. That's something." A quiet chuckle rippled through the bridge. Miller turned to face his crew, a genuine smile crossing his face. "Tom, make sure you got good sensor readings of their ship while they were showing off. Command will want to add it to the database." "Already done, sir," Tom replied. "Their new sensor suite is obvious if you know what to look for. They're not nearly as subtle as they think they are." Miller nodded and returned to his captain's chair. The Empire's mockery was useful. It made them careless, prone to showing off their latest technology, in an attempt to emphasize their superiority. Each encounter added to Earth's understanding of Imperial capabilities. The truth about the Defiant was buried under layers of secrecy. Behind its worn exterior and seemingly outdated systems lay some of humanity's most advanced technology. The flickering lights and power fluctuations were carefully manufactured. The scarred hull contained sensors more advanced than anything the Empire had developed. Even the bridge, with its simple displays and basic controls, was a masterwork of deception. The Empire saw what they wanted to see: an obsolete warship crewed by a species they considered barely worthy of notice. They never questioned why Earth would keep such an old vessel on active patrol. Their contempt blinded them to the possibility that the humans might be more clever than they appeared. "Course laid in for the outer colonies, sir," the navigator reported. "Shall I proceed?" Miller settled into his chair, feeling the familiar comfort of its worn cushions. "Proceed. Steady it as she goes. Let's give our Imperial friends something to mock in their reports." The Defiant's engines hummed to life, a sound that Imperial sensors would read as inefficient and outdated, while in reality, the ship's power plant was operating at peak efficiency. As they accelerated away from the encounter, Miller thought about all the similar meetings they'd had over the past year. The Empire's confidence grew with each passing month, their belief in their own superiority becoming more entrenched with each encounter. Someday, that confidence would be their undoing. But for now, the Defiant would continue its patrol, gathering intelligence with every mocking encounter, playing the role of an obsolete warship while hiding its true nature. Miller and his crew would endure the Empire's ridicule because they understood something the Empire had forgotten. True strength lies not in appearance, but in capability, and the deadliest predator is often the one that appears least threatening. As the stars streaked by outside, Miller reviewed the ship's actual status on his secure terminal. All systems were operating perfectly, their true power hidden beneath layers of false readings and manufactured inefficiencies. The Empire might mock the Defiant, but Miller knew that when the time came, and it would come, they would learn too late the cost of their arrogance. For now, though, they would continue their patrol, a supposedly obsolete warship in a galaxy of gleaming Imperial vessels. And with each passing day, with each sneering encounter, they would add another piece to the puzzle that would eventually bring the Empire to its knees. The emergency signal cut through the quiet of deep space like a knife. Captain Miller had been reviewing maintenance reports when the alert flashed across his screen, its urgent red pulse demanding immediate attention. "Sir," Anne called from her communication station, "we're picking up a distress call from Research Station Delta. They're under attack." Miller straightened in his chair. Research Station Delta was one of Earth's most remote facilities, technically within human space, but close to Imperial borders. "Put it through." The station director's voice crackled through the bridge speakers, filled with static and fear. "To any Earth vessels, this is Research Station Delta. We are under attack by an Imperial warship. They've disabled our communications array and—" "No, please, we're a civilian facility." The transmission cut off abruptly. "How far?" Miller asked, already knowing the Defiant was the closest ship. Tom checked his sensors. 20 minutes at maximum speed, sir. The Imperial ship is still there. Reading weapons fire." Miller's jaw clenched. This was a clear violation of every treaty between Earth and the Empire. "Sound battle stations. Get me ship-wide." The alert klaxon echoed through the ship as Miller stood. All hands, this is the captain. We have a civilian station under attack. I won't lie. We're heading into a fight against an Imperial warship. They think we're outdated and weak. Today, we prove them wrong. Battle stations. The Defiant's engines roared to life, their true power finally unleashed. The ship shot through space like an arrow, while the crew prepared for combat. Gone was the pretense of inefficiency. Now every system hummed with deadly precision. They dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the station, and the scene confirmed their worst fears. The Imperial warship, nearly twice the size of the Defiant, was systematically destroying the station's outer sections. Debris floated in space, and emergency force fields flickered around multiple hull breaches. Imperial vessel, this is Captain Miller of the Earth ship Defiant. Cease your attack immediately. You are in violation of. The Imperial ship's response came in the form of a plasma torpedo that streaked past the Defiant's bow. A warning shot. Well, Miller said quietly, I guess we're done talking. Tactical analysis of their weapons. Standard Imperial loadout, sir, the tactical officer reported. Their shields are configured for heavy combat. They're not expecting much resistance from, how did they put it last time? A rust bucket. Miller allowed himself a grim smile. Let's change their expectations. Execute combat pattern Delta 7. Weapons free. The Defiant moved with a grace that would have shocked any Imperial observer. Its supposed structural weaknesses vanished as the ship pulled a tight turn that should have been impossible for a vessel its size. The Imperial ship fired again, expecting an easy target. Instead, the Defiant's true defensive systems activated. The incoming fire met a shield matrix far more advanced than anything the Empire had encountered. The energy dispersed harmlessly across a barrier that, according to every Imperial scan, shouldn't even exist. Target their weapons array, Miller ordered. Minimal force. Let's show them exactly what they've walked into. The Defiant's main gun spoke, not with the crude plasma weapons the Empire expected, but with focused quantum phase beams that slipped through Imperial shields as if they weren't there. The precision shots struck exactly where intended, destroying the Imperial ship's primary weapon ports without compromising their hull. On the bridge, Miller watched the Imperial vessel's reaction. They tried to bring secondary weapons online, tried to adjust their shields, tried to call for reinforcements. The Defiant's electronic warfare suite, hidden behind false power signatures all these years, shut down their communications before they could send a distress call. Sir, and reported, they're hailing us. The same Imperial captain who had mocked outdated Earth ships now appeared on the screen, his purple face pale with shock. This is impossible. Your weapons can't. Can't what? Miller's voice was cold. Can't penetrate your superior shields. Can't target with this level of precision. I wonder what else this rust bucket can't do. We were within our rights, the Imperial captain protested. This station was conducting weapons research. This is a civilian research station studying deep space phenomena. Miller cut him off. And even if it wasn't, you violated 3 separate treaties by attacking it. Power down your remaining weapons and prepare to be boarded. We'll be taking custody of your ship and crew. You can't. I already have. Miller nodded to tactical. Another precise shot disabled the Imperial ship's engines. Your choice now is whether your crew survives this encounter. Decide quickly. The Imperial captain's face showed a mix of fury and fear as he realized his situation. The mighty Imperial warship, reduced to helplessness by what they dismissed as an obsolete relic. We surrender. The next hours were busy as the Defiant's crew secured the Imperial vessel and evacuated wounded civilians from the station. Miller coordinated with Earth Command, knowing this incident would change everything. The Empire wouldn't be able to dismiss this defeat as easily as they had the Defiant's appearance. In his quarters that evening, Miller recorded his log. The Empire's attack on Research Station Delta marks a turning point. Their arrogance led them to believe they could attack a civilian target with impunity. Instead, they'd given us the excuse we needed to demonstrate a fraction of our true capabilities. Earth Command believes the Empire will respond with increased aggression. Wounded pride makes for dangerous enemies, but they've lost the advantage of our perceived weakness. The next time they face an Earth ship, they won't know what's hidden behind its worn exterior. He paused, considering the implications. The Defiant's success today was built on years of careful deception. While the Empire mocked us, we studied them. While they showed off their technology, we perfected countermeasures. They never wondered why Earth, with all its resources, would keep an outdated ship on patrol. Their contempt blinded them to the obvious question: what if it wasn't actually outdated? The captured Imperial ship would be studied, its crew questioned. But Miller knew the real damage wasn't to the Empire's military strength. It was to their certainty of superiority. They would review every encounter with seemingly primitive Earth ships, wondering what other surprises waited behind those weathered hulls. As the Defiant maintained position near the damaged station, waiting for relief ships to arrive, Miller watched the Imperial warship floating powerless nearby. Its once gleaming hull was now scared by precise weapon impacts, each mark a testament to how completely they'd underestimated their opponent. The Empire had mocked this warship, had dismissed it as obsolete and weak. Today they'd learned the cost of that mistake. But Miller knew this was just the beginning. The Empire wouldn't take this humiliation lightly. They would respond with force, trying to prove their superiority once and for all. Let them come, Miller thought. The Defiant had shown what one supposedly outdated ship could do. The Empire was about to discover that every Earth vessel they'd mocked might hide similar surprises. Their arrogance had started this fight. Human ingenuity would finish it. 3 weeks after the Research Station Delta incident, the Empire's response began. It started small Imperial ships harassing human cargo vessels, random inspections of colony ships, and increasingly aggressive patrols along the border. But Miller knew these were just the opening moves in a larger game. The Defiant orbited Earth's largest outer colony, New Hope, its worn exterior masking heightened battle readiness. Miller stood in the ship's briefing room with his senior staff, studying tactical displays showing Imperial fleet movements. "They're not even trying to hide it anymore," Tom said, pointing to red dots representing Imperial warships. 3 battle groups have moved within striking distance of our outer colonies in the past week alone. Anne nodded grimly. And their propaganda broadcasts are getting nastier. They're calling the Delta incident a human provocation, claiming we attacked their ship without cause. Of course they are. Miller traced a finger along the display's border markers. They can't admit one of our obsolete ships defeated their latest warship. It would raise too many questions about their supposed superiority. The room's communications panel chimed. "Captain, priority message from Earth Command." The screen lit up with Admiral Rogers' face, his expression grave. "Captain Miller, I assume you're tracking the Imperial fleet movements." "Yes, sir. They're positioning for something big. Our intelligence agrees. We've intercepted communications suggesting they're planning a full-scale invasion of the outer colonies. They mean to teach humanity a lesson about our proper place in the galaxy." Miller's staff exchanged worried looks. The Admiral continued. "The Empire's defeat at Delta wounded their pride. Now they want to prove their dominance once and for all. They believe overwhelming force will break us. How many ships are we looking at, sir?" Current estimates suggest 5 Imperial battle groups, possibly more. They're gathering their forces slowly, trying not to be obvious. But our deep space sensors show massive fleet movements behind their borders. Miller studied the tactical display. They'll hit New Hope first. It's our largest outer colony, and taking it would split our defense forces. Agreed. That's why the Defiant will remain on station there. We're deploying additional ships to support you, but they'll be older models like yours. The Admiral's mouth twitched in a slight smile. After all, we wouldn't want to worry the Empire with any signs of advanced technology. The briefing continued, outlining Earth's defense strategy. Throughout human space, ships that appeared outdated and weak were moving into position, each hiding capabilities that would shock the Imperial fleet. Later, walking through the Defiance corridors, Miller felt the tension among his crew. They'd proven they could handle one Imperial warship, but facing entire battle groups was different. He stopped at various stations, speaking with crew members, ensuring they understood what was coming. In engineering, he found the chief engineer, Robert, supervising modifications to the ship's power systems. "How are we looking?" "Ready as we'll ever be, Captain." Robert patted a nearby console affectionately. "They think they know what this ship can do after Delta, but we've still got plenty of surprises for them." "We'll need them," Miller replied. "Any word from the Colonial Defense Forces?" "They're nervous, but holding together. The civilian government's doing a good job keeping people calm, but everyone knows something's coming." New Hope's lights were visible through the nearest viewport, the colony's habitation domes glittering against the planet's surface. Millions of people lived there, pioneers who'd built new lives far from Earth. The Empire thought these colonies were weak points, easy targets to break humanity's spirit. Days passed, filled with preparation and waiting. Imperial ships probed the defense perimeter with increasing boldness, testing responses, looking for weaknesses. The Defiant and its small squadron of seemingly obsolete vessels maintained their positions, appearing vulnerable while concealing their true strength. The first real warning came from a deep space sensor buoy. A massive Imperial fleet had begun moving openly toward New Hope, their ships no longer trying to hide their presence. The Empire wanted humanity to see them coming, to understand the futility of resistance. Miller received the report in his quarters. He thought about all the times Imperial ships had mocked the Defiant, all their sneering comments about human technology. Their contempt had led them to this moment, convinced that their superior numbers and apparent technological advantage guaranteed victory. On the bridge, he watched the tactical display fill with red markers as the Imperial fleet approached. His crew worked calmly at their stations, the months of deception having prepared them for this moment. The Defiant's worn exterior now served a new purpose, making the Empire overconfident in their attack. "Message from the Imperial flagship, sir," Anne reported. "They're demanding our immediate surrender. They say if we withdraw all forces from the outer colonies now, they'll allow Earth to maintain nominal independence under Imperial oversight." Miller smiled grimly. "Send them our response. Come and take it." The Imperial fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in waves, hundreds of ships filling the space around New Hope. Their formations were perfect, their strategy exactly what their training dictated for overwhelming an inferior force. They expected the human ships to break and run, or to be destroyed in a futile defense. Instead, they found the Defiant and its squadron waiting in precise positions, their apparent weaknesses masking carefully planned killing zones. As the Empire prepared to demonstrate their superiority once and for all, they remained blind to the truth that had been in front of them all along. They had mocked these ships, dismissed them as relics, and convinced themselves that humanity was technologically primitive. That belief had shaped their strategy, their deployment, their entire approach to the coming battle. Now that same belief would lead them into a trap years in the making. Miller watched the Imperial fleet take up attack positions, their confidence evident in their aggressive formation. They thought they knew what Earth ships were capable of. They thought the Defiant's victory at Delta had been a fluke, a lucky shot that couldn't be repeated against a proper fleet. "All ships, battle stations," Miller ordered, his voice calm. "Remember your training. Remember Delta. But most of all, remember why we let them think we were weak. Today, the Empire learns the cost of their arrogance." The massive Imperial fleet moved forward, weapons charged, ready to demonstrate their power against what they saw as inferior vessels. They never questioned why Earth would position outdated ships to defend its most valuable colony. They never wondered what other secrets those worn hulls might hide. Their first salvos would launch any moment, beginning a battle that would change the galaxy. But the Empire's fate had been sealed long before this day, written in every mocking comment and sneering dismissal of human capabilities. They had chosen to see what they expected to see, and that choice would prove fatal. The Defiant systems hummed with hidden power, ready for what was coming. The Empire had mocked this warship, and now that same warship would begin their downfall. All because they never learned the oldest lesson in warfare: never underestimate your enemy. The first Imperial shots lit up space like artificial stars. Hundreds of plasma torpedoes streaked toward the small human fleet, their paths forming a web of destruction that no primitive ships could hope to survive. On the Defiance bridge, Miller watched the incoming fire with calm eyes. "All ships, execute defense pattern Echo," he ordered. "Show them what these old rust buckets can really do." The supposedly obsolete human vessels moved with impossible precision. Their formation shifted like a living thing, creating gaps where there should be ships, presenting targets that vanished before Imperial weapons could track them. The massive barrage, enough firepower to level a small moon, hit nothing but empty space. On the Imperial flagship, Grand Admiral Reed watched in growing confusion as his opening strike failed. "Impossible. Their ships can't move like that. Our targeting computers show them as slow, outdated vessels." "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "we're having trouble getting sensor locks. Something's interfering with our systems." "Of course you're having trouble," Reed snapped. "They're using primitive jamming techniques. Adjust frequencies and fire again. They can't dodge forever." But the human ships weren't just dodging. The Defiant led its squadron in a complex dance, each movement bringing them closer to the Imperial fleet while appearing to retreat. Decades of enduring Imperial mockery had taught them exactly what the Empire expected to see, and now those expectations worked against them. Miller touched a control on his chair. "Time to show them the first surprise. All ships, activate quantum shield matrices." The next Imperial barrage struck the human ships directly and splashed harmlessly across barriers that, according to every Imperial scanner, couldn't possibly exist. The energy dissipated in complex patterns, feeding back into the shields instead of damaging them. "Sir," Tom called from his station, "Imperial fleet is adjusting formation. They're moving to surround us." "Let them," Miller replied. "They still think they know our capabilities. Weapons, prepare main guns, target their command and control nodes, just like we practiced." The Defiant's outdated weapons ports opened, revealing technology that had been carefully hidden for years. The Empire had mocked their apparent lack of advancement. They'd never considered that humanity's true weapons might be completely different from what they displayed. The first shot from the Defiant struck the nearest Imperial cruiser with surgical precision. The beam wasn't the crude plasma weapon they expected, but a focused quantum lance that bypassed shields and armor as if they weren't there. The cruiser's command center went dark, its crew suddenly unable to control their ship. "What was that?" Reed demanded, watching one of his best ships drift helplessly. "Their weapons, scan that energy signature." "Sir, we can't. Our sensors aren't detecting any weapon discharge. According to our readings, they haven't even fired." More shots followed, each human ship revealing weapons that Imperial sensors couldn't even detect. Ship after ship in the Imperial fleet lost control, their crews trapped aboard vessels they could no longer command. The Empire's perfect formation began to break apart. "All ships, open fire," Reed ordered, his voice edged with panic. "Destroy them. Use everything we have." The space around New Hope erupted with energy as the Imperial fleet launched its full arsenal, but their strategy was based on overwhelming primitive defenses that didn't actually exist. The human ships sliced through their barrage with precision that should have been impossible, their true capabilities finally unleashed. "Squadron leaders, execute attack pattern Omega," Miller commanded. "Show them what humanity has been working on while they were busy mocking us." The human fleet split into smaller groups, each targeting specific sections of the Imperial formation. Ships that the Empire had dismissed as relics demonstrated maneuvers that violated their understanding of physics. The Defiant led the charge, its worn hull absorbing direct hits that should have vaporized it. On his flagship, Reed watched his carefully planned assault crumble. This isn't possible. They're supposed to be behind us technologically. Every report, every analysis. Sir, we're losing ships faster than we can count. Their weapons, they're not just more advanced, they're operating on principles we don't understand. The Empire's mighty fleet, which had approached with such confidence, was being systematically torn apart, not through brute force, but with precise strikes that disabled rather than destroyed. Each hit demonstrated not just superior technology, but a perfect understanding of Imperial systems and tactics. They knew, Reed whispered, finally understanding. All those years, those outdated ships, the primitive readings, they wanted us to underestimate them. They studied us while we were laughing at them. The Defiant's next strike took out his flagship's main power, leaving only emergency systems running. Through the viewport, Reed watched his fleet falling to pieces, defeated by the very ships he had mocked countless times. Miller's voice came through on all frequencies, calm and clear. Imperial fleet, you have a choice. Power down your remaining weapons and prepare to be boarded, or continue this fight and lose everything. We've disabled your ships rather than destroying them, but that courtesy only extends so far. Reed stared at the tactical display, watching more of his ships go dark. The mighty Imperial fleet, pride of the Empire, had been defeated by a force they had completely underestimated. Their own arrogance had blinded them to the truth, while they were boasting of their superiority. Humanity had quietly surpassed them. This is Grand Admiral Reed, he transmitted, his voice heavy with defeat. All Imperial ships, stand down. I repeat, stand down. The battle ended not with a grand explosion, but with the quiet powering down of weapon systems throughout the Imperial fleet. The human ships moved among their defeated enemies like sheepdogs herding their flock, their worn exteriors now a mockery of Imperial pride. On the Defiant's bridge, Miller looked at the sensor display showing hundreds of disabled Imperial ships. Send word to Earth Command. The Empire's main fleet is neutralized. New Hope is secure. Sir, and reported, we're getting signals from other sectors. The Empire's forces are retreating across all fronts. Word of what happened here is spreading. Miller nodded. The Empire had built its power on a foundation of perceived technological superiority. Today that foundation had cracked. Every world under Imperial control would soon know that their mighty fleet had been defeated by ships they considered obsolete. Send recovery teams to the disabled ships, he ordered, and prepare a full report for command. The Empire's going to have a lot of questions to answer about attacking our colonies. The battle for New Hope was over, but Miller knew this was just the beginning. The Empire's defeat here would echo across the galaxy, showing everyone that their claimed superiority had been an illusion. All because they had mocked the wrong warship, never questioning why Earth would keep such primitive vessels on patrol. As the Defiant moved among the silent Imperial ships, its worn hull gleaming in the light of New Hope's sun, Miller allowed himself a small smile. The Empire had spent years laughing at human technology, never realizing they were helping humanity prepare for this very day. Their arrogance had been their undoing, and now the galaxy would never be the same. News of the Empire's defeat spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. The story seemed impossible. A small fleet of outdated human vessels had destroyed the Empire's main battle fleet, but the evidence was undeniable. Hundreds of Imperial warships floated powerless above New Hope, their crews rescued by the very ships they had mocked for so long. 3 months after the battle, Miller stood on the Defiant's bridge, watching a very different scene unfold. The ship now orbited the Imperial capital world, but not as a visitor seeking permission to dock. The worn warship that had endured years of mockery now led a fleet of Earth vessels, their true power no longer hidden. Another system has declared independence, and reported from her station. That makes 17 former Imperial worlds in the past week alone. The Empire was crumbling. Their defeated New Hope had shattered more than their military power. It had destroyed the illusion of superiority that held their realm together. Every subject species and conquered world now knew the truth. The mighty Empire could be beaten. "Message from the Imperial Palace," Tom called out. "They're ready to begin the surrender talks." Miller straightened his uniform. "Signal the other fleet commanders. It's time to end this." The Imperial Palace's grand meeting hall had been designed to humble visitors, its massive architecture meant to emphasize the Empire's power and wealth. But today it felt empty, its grandeur hollow. Miller led the Earth delegation into the hall, joined by commanders from other human ships that had fought at New Hope. Grand Admiral Reed sat at the Imperial side of the table, his once pristine uniform now lacking its medals. Beside him, various Imperial officials shifted nervously in their seats. They had spent years treating human representatives with barely disguised contempt. Now they couldn't meet the Earth commander's eyes. "The terms are simple," Miller began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "The Empire will withdraw from all occupied territories. Each world will be free to choose its own path: independence, alliance with Earth, or continued association with what remains of the Empire. You're destroying something that took centuries to build," one Imperial official protested. "The Empire brought order to the galaxy." "The Empire brought tyranny," Miller corrected. "You built your power on a foundation of supposed superiority. When that foundation crumbled, everything else followed." Reed spoke up, his voice bitter. "How long? How long were you playing us for fools with those obsolete ships?" "From the beginning." Miller allowed himself a small smile. "Every time you mocked our technology, every time you showed off your latest advancements to impress us with your superiority, we were learning. The Defiant and ships like her were never outdated. They were purpose-built to appear primitive while hiding our true capabilities." The Imperial officials exchanged shocked looks. Their entire strategy had been based on the assumption of technological superiority. They had never considered that humanity might have deliberately appeared weak. "But the research stations," another official said. "The colonial infrastructure, everything we saw suggested." "Suggested exactly what we wanted you to see," Miller finished. "While you were laughing at our primitive ships, we were building something far beyond your understanding. Your contempt made you blind." The surrender proceedings continued through the day. With each passing hour, reports arrived of more systems declaring independence from the Empire. The realm that had dominated the galaxy through fear and proclaimed superiority was dissolving. Later, walking through the Imperial capital's streets, Miller saw the changes already beginning. Species that had been relegated to servant roles now walked openly, their heads held high. The Empire's fall had unleashed a wave of freedom that would reshape the galaxy. Back on the Defiant, Miller recorded what would be one of his final log entries of the war. "The Empire that mocked us has fallen, not through brute force or superior numbers, but through their own arrogance. They believed their technology made them unbeatable, and that belief made them vulnerable. While they were laughing at our ships, they never asked the important questions. Why would Earth keep using outdated vessels? Why would a spacefaring civilization choose to appear weak? Their contempt gave us the perfect cover to prepare for this day." The ship's worn hull had become famous across the galaxy. The vessel that Imperial crews had called a rust bucket was now recognized as the key to their defeat. But Miller knew the Defiant's disguise was no longer needed. "Begin the refit," he ordered. "It's time to show everyone what this ship really is." Over the next weeks, the Defiant's false exterior was stripped away. The flickering lights and power fluctuations that had fooled Imperial sensors were removed. The seemingly basic weapons ports were upgraded with visible quantum lance arrays. When the work was done, the ship gleamed like new, its true nature finally revealed to the galaxy. But Miller kept one small section of the hull unchanged, a patch of worn metal and peeling paint, preserved as a reminder. The Empire had fallen because they saw what they expected to see. They had mocked this warship, never wondering why their targets accepted the mockery with such patience. The final Imperial surrender was signed a month later. The empire that had dominated the galaxy for centuries had been brought down by the very ships they ridiculed. Their territory was divided among newly independent worlds, their mighty fleets reduced to a defense force for their home systems. On the day the surrender took effect, Miller stood in the Defiance observation lounge with his crew, watching the Imperial capital below. The ship's new hull sparkled in the sunlight, but that preserved patch of wear remained visible, a testament to their long deception. "Hard to believe it's really over," Tom said, breaking the thoughtful silence. "All those years of playing weak, enduring their insults. Worth every moment," Miller replied. "They gave us exactly what we needed. Time to prepare, and their complete underestimation of our capabilities. The Empire's fall would be studied for generations, a cautionary tale about the dangers of arrogance and the fatal mistake of mocking one's enemies. They had laughed at humanity's ships, dismissed their technology, and treated them with contempt. That contempt had blinded them to the truth until it was too late. The Defiant began its journey home, leading a fleet of ships that no longer needed to hide their true nature. Behind them, the former Imperial worlds began building their own futures, free from the tyranny that had gripped them for so long. Miller took one last look at the Imperial capital, now just another city on another world. The Empire had mocked this warship, treating it as a relic of the past. Instead, it had become the harbinger of their future, a future they never saw coming, because they were too busy laughing at what they thought they saw.